Hello, I'm Dr. Chandler. Welcome to my course video lecture notes. Please print the notes provided with the video and create your own notes to get the most out of this lecture. This lecture reviews behaviorism, also known as learning theory. The discipline of psychology includes many theories of personality. Each theory attempts to explain why we are the way we are or how we are. We've already discussed the biological theory of why we are the way we are in terms of genetics and temperament and brain functioning. We've discussed social cognitive theories when we touched on environmental and cultural influences. There are many theories of personality because each theory focuses on and explains different aspects of personality. Like the blind men who touch the elephant, depending upon which part of the elephant is explored, there will be a different theory of what an elephant constitutes. For theories of personality, we will focus on behaviorism theory in this video lecture and trait, psychoanalytic, and humanistic theories in following video lectures. B.F. Skinner is known for his contributions to learning theory, also known as behaviorism, especially for operant conditioning. You will be asked to diagram, label, and describe operant conditioning as follows. S, arrow, R is the diagram. Stimulus causes response is the label for the diagram, and the description of this theory is that environment determines behavior. It is ironic that this theory of personality says that environment causes behavior. Essentially, this theory does not address personality. Skinner invented the operant conditioning chamber, also known as the Skinner box, as an example of how he could control an environment and then control behavior. He focused on observable and measurable behavior. He was a firm believer that human free will is an illusion, and any human action is the result of the consequences of that action. If the consequence is bad, there's a high chance that the action will not be repeated. However, if the consequences are good, the actions that lead to it are reinforced. He called this the principle of reinforcement. Skinner's operant conditioning, sometimes called learning theory or radical behaviorism, is that learning results from the response, reinforcement, or punishment an organism receives following a behavior. Humans are interchangeable with rats in this theory. We are all simply organisms that react to punishments and rewards in our environment. These punishments or rewards are called reinforcers. In this diagram, we're going to see an example. The behavior or action is studying. A positive reinforcer is to earn good grades from studying. The result is it feels good to get good grades. Studying increases. Now, additionally, you could have with studying nagging that happens. And a negative reinforcer here is when the nagging ceases. When the nagging ceases, sometimes studying increases. And so that's an example of a negative reinforcer in this theory. A positive reinforcement, remember, is something that rewards desired behavior to increase the frequency of behavior, while a negative reinforcer removes a punishment or an aversive stimulus. So again, positive reinforcement rewards desired behavior to increase the frequency of behavior. But what is positive reinforcement to a given organism? I drool over steak, but my friend who is vegetarian will gag at the smell of bacon. So it's not really as simple as it appears on the surface. Again, negative reinforcement, this is what most people don't understand, removes a punishment or an aversive stimulus after a desired behavior to increase the behavior. This could be the end of nagging, as shown earlier, or the classic example of taking an aspirin to relieve a painful headache. Perhaps you experienced negative reinforcement when a parent took away a privilege but then gave it back early for good behavior. Punishment is a process to decrease the frequency of an undesired behavior by following the behavior with an aversive or painful stimulus. Punishment is used often because it requires no imagination to create, and it works in the short term. However, what commonly occurs is that the person avoids the punisher or gets very sneaky with the behavior rather than truly stopping the behavior that was punished. You can probably recall examples of this from your own experience. Here is a list of the kinds of reinforcers. Plus R is adding the good stuff, giving treats. Plus P is adding a punishment, such as giving a sharp tug on the leash surrounding the dog's neck. Ouch! Minus P is ending positive reinforcers, calling a halt when the dog wants to go forward. Here is a list of reinforcers. Positive R is adding the good stuff, giving treats. Plus P is adding a punishment, such as giving a sharp tug on the leash surrounding the dog's neck. Ouch! Minus R is taking away a punishment, such as loosening up the pressure on the dog's neck. Minus P is ending positive reinforcers, calling a halt when the dog wants to go forward. This is much more effective than punishment. Punishment is always the last choice. If it is ever used at all, punishment should be in the form of time out or taking away a privilege. The term shaping has become a commonly used verb that started with this theory. The word shaping, as used in operant conditioning, means to obtain a response by reinforcing successive approximations of the desired behavior. Successive approximations means that one small step in the desired direction at a time. There are many schedules of reinforcement. The ones that you will need to learn for this course are continuous or fixed schedules, which reinforce the desired response every time it occurs. Think of a gumball machine. You put money in and a gumball emerges every time. And you learn that putting the right amount of money in means juicy gumballs. The other kind of schedule of reinforcement that you are expected to learn is called partial or variable schedule of reinforcement. This means reinforcing the response sporadically or randomly. Which kind of reinforcement do you think works best? If I had to say, I would guess fixed. What could be better than learning to put money in because you will get a gumball every time you do? The problem is, the first time a gumball doesn't come out, most of us will stop the behavior of inserting coins, or worse, try to break the machine. Yet, with a slot machine, a random reinforcement schedule, a person continues to put money in without a reward for a very long time. The longer one puts money in, the harder it is to leave the machine without getting your payoff. So partial or variable reinforcement actually works best. Partial or variable with a sporadic and random schedule of reinforcement works best. Extinction is the weakening of a learned association through the removal of reinforcement or pairing. An organism will continue a behavior longer with random reinforcement before extinction. Again, extinction means the behavior is no longer repeated. Ivan Pavlov's classical conditioning is learning resulting from pairing a conditional stimulus, an originally neutral stimulus, with a new unconditioned stimulus, some kind of natural and automatic or reflexive trigger. Pavlov based classical conditioning on his experiments with drooling dogs. Here you see the food, the unconditioned stimulus, causes the unconditioned response, salivation, when the dog sees the bone. The bell is a neutral stimulus and gets no response in terms of salivation from the dog. Well, here we see the dog's tongue again because we have the bell with the food and we get salivation. Now, after that paired, after some period of time, pretty soon all you have to have is the bell, ting, and you get the salivation. That's classical conditioning. Here's the diagram that I'm going to be asking you to draw for classical conditioning. Stimulus, arrow, response, and neutral stimulus, arrow, response. So you're going to have just the letters N, S, arrow, R, and the labels for that will be neutral stimulus, causes, response. So you need these 3 steps for classical conditioning. So here's the same example where we have changed the organism and the reinforcers. Salivation is reflexive, and so is sexual response. In the picture, US, the unconditional stimulus, is a passionate kiss from someone attractive. The unconditioned response is sexual arousal. Then we add a stimulus that is not related, such as the smell of onion breath, as the stimulus to be conditioned. The unconditioned stimulus is the same passionate kiss with the same UR, or unconditioned response, of sexual arousal. According to Pavlov's classical conditioning, if the onion breath is paired with the passionate kiss, over time, the sexual response will be hardwired. Now, onion breath will cause sexual arousal. You can see with this diagram how easily human sexual response can be wired. Unfortunately, it is extremely difficult, if it is possible at all, to change human sexual response once the connections have been made. Learned helplessness is the hopelessness and passive resignation learned when one is unable to avoid repeated aversive events. This concept is based upon the following research. A dog is placed in a kennel. A switch makes the floor of the kennel shock the dog. The dog attempts to get out by running and leaping and digging and chewing, and the dog cannot escape. The dog is placed in the kennel for several days. It does not take many days for the dog to quit attempting to escape. The dog will shiver and whine and take the pain. And then one day when the dog is in the kennel, the lid is removed, and the dog could now easily escape, but the dog does not even try to leap out of the kennel. This is similar to some things that happen with children. For example, some believe that if a child is left to cry at night, the child will go back to sleep on their own sooner. The research on this indicates that the sooner a caregiver responds to the child, the faster the household can return to sleep. When an infant's needs are responded to habitually, the infant learns that he or she is valued, and the baby will eventually learn to self-comfort and to create close relationships with others, because empathy is an emotion that is developed through conscientious caregiving and is invaluable for families or generalized to others across communities. The last learning theory we study is Albert Bandura's social learning theory. This theory improves upon operant and classical conditioning because this theory brings the person, their thoughts and feelings back into the equation. This diagram is called reciprocal determinism, with each component affecting every other component. P equal person indicating cognitive factors such as knowledge of self and others. Behaviorism's organism. E equals environment, meaning the social situation factors such as social norms. Behaviorism stimulus. B for the behavioral factors such as the skills and abilities. Behaviorism's response. Social learning theorists include modeling and social skills training such as role modeling or practicing specific skills for use in real situations. Classical conditioning treatments include flooding, which is exposing an individual to a stimulus where they are forced to confront the fearful situations, and systematic desensitization, a step-by-step process where phobias or fears are removed through gradual exposure to what is feared. Operant conditioning treatments include token economies, where tokens or credits that are redeemable for freedoms or privileges are given for good behavior. It's not healthy to use food or caring as reinforcements. Behavioral records are used to track and reinforce and change behaviors. A positive of behavioral therapies is that these treatments work with all populations in a very short period of time. A negative of these therapies is that sometimes a behavior is substituted for another behavior because this treatment does not address any underlying causes of behaviors.